ended many months ago. But I do have to say two things. First of all, there is a question of responsibility. When Hamas launched October 7th, they knew all well what the consequences might be. They may not have thought that it would be a 2-year-long war, but they knew that they are putting civilians in Gaza in harm's way. So there is a decision-making moment in Hamas which has to be taken into account. And then, paradoxically, because of the formula that I just said, that you can't end the war without releasing all the hostages, although we're just talking about 50 people, and maybe just 20 of them alive, a lot, if not everything, hinges on that. The suffering of the Gazawis, too. The way to end the war is the release of the hostages, because after the release of the hostages, and with international pressure being what it is, I don't believe the Israeli government can continue the war.
Is there any informed understanding that if the war stops, Hamas would release the hostages?
Define informed. We're talking about a terrorist organization and we don't talk to them directly. So yeah, there are doubts. There are people who say, how can you be sure that they will release all the hostages? And truth be told, I can't be sure. But on the other hand, there's only one way to find out. And if the choice is between maybe losing 3 hostages but releasing 47, or losing all 50, I'd rather try the first method, even if I certainly can't put my trust in an organization like Hamas. Which also leads me to say one more thing. This is on a personal note. I left the foreign ministry many years ago, and many of the things I do since is related to peace building between Israel and the Palestinians. You don't win wars in a battlefield. You win battles on the battlefield.
We are in Israel, and one aspect which really looms large wherever we go, from street squares to restaurants, the issue of hostages that were taken in by Hamas on that dastardly attack, during that dastardly attack on October 7 back in 2023 and 2022. And now we are seeing that that situation still remains. Many of the hostages are still in their custody, and that leads to a situation where the war can end if the hostages come back, and the hostages can come back if the war ends. So let's understand what's this catch-22 situation. We are at a forum, an organization called informally a forum of families for the hostages, and with us Mr. Daniel Shek. He's a former ambassador of Israel, and he's someone who's coordinating the efforts of this forum, again informally. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for joining us. Please explain to us this quandary that the war ends if the hostages come back, and the hostages can come back if the war ends. So how many hostages are still there with Hamas, and why this difficulty in getting them back?
So yes, that's the formula, and it has been the formula from day one. Only even if a conflict can be, described in very simple terms in a very simple formula, it doesn't mean that it's simple to reach that formula. There are still 50 hostages in Gaza. There were 251 at the beginning. Most of them came back through an agreement. Some came back, unfortunately, in body bags. And among the 50, there are also many, unfortunately, who are not alive. But we consider, and in Jewish tradition it's very important, anyone as a hostage, regardless of if they are dead or alive. Those who are alive need to come back in order to relive their lives, and those who are no longer alive simply need to be to get a decent burial and enable their families to mourn as they wish. So, as I said, even if from the beginning it was clear that the conflict to a large extent hinges on the issue of the hostages, it's not the only issue. Yeah. But there's an issue of a military balance, of fighting Hamas. But we have the impression that that has, done its role, and that we're now, the military operations we're turning in circles. And that it's time to move to the conclusion of this war through an agreement. At the current situation, Hamas doesn't seem to be prepared to release all the hostages, and the Israeli government doesn't seem to be disposed to end the war. So the simple formula remains simple, but its realization is difficult.
So what are you doing these days to sort of impress upon the government that they should do something? So, for example, a halfway house, if not end the war, at least choose a ceasefire so that the hostages can come back?
So we use all democratic ways to weigh on the government, and we feel very much encouraged by the fact that an overwhelming majority of Israeli public opinion, every opinion poll shows it, supports us, is with us. So we do demonstrations and media campaigns and social media campaigns, and we lobby the decision makers, the parliamentarians and the ministers. And we also have an international operation, because international players have a role in this conflict. And we just try to use every method that we can think of in order to implore the decision makers to take into consideration the urgency and the fact that the lives of the hostages who are still there are hanging on a thread. In the last 48 hours, videos were released by Hamas which show people in conditions that we thought no longer existed since the death camps in World War II were liberated. I'm saying this really not easily. Both my parents were survivors of Auschwitz, so I know what I'm talking about. Their lives are hanging on a thread, and even if there are other considerations that are important, they can wait. I don't say that it's more important, but it's more urgent to release the hostages.
You're putting a lot of pressure on the government, but it seems not to be working. Why?
It will work. It will work in the end. Without, taking credit for all of it, we know that the two previous agreements that happened, that brought back altogether nearly 150 hostages, probably wouldn't have happened without the pressure of Israeli civil society. And we lead that kind of pressure.
You're suggesting that there is some kind of a divergence in positions of the civil society, the larger civil society and the government?
Unfortunately, at this point in time, yes, there is. I believe that there is such an overwhelming majority of Israelis who agree with us that it's time to end the war and release the hostages, and that there's clearly a rift between Israeli society and their representatives in government.
Thank you, Ambassador.